All right, let's take a look at the homework for Monday for week number 2 in the second quarter. So if we take a look at the two fractions, we got this runner and she runs 1 2/5 miles on Monday, and then she runs 2 1/4 miles on Tuesday. How far did she run on Monday and Tuesday combined? So if we're trying to combine to get the total, we're going to add these two mixed numbers. So let's stack the fractions. We have 1 2/5 plus 2 1/4. So first we can take a look at the whole numbers. So 2 plus 1 is going to give us 3. Then we need to take a look at our fractions and check and see, do we have common denominators? We have 4 and 5, they are not in common, so we need to get them into a common denominator. So how do we get them into a common denominator? We look at their multiples of 4 and 5. So if we use 4 times 5, and then we do 5 times 4, we can get into common denominators by using the opposite denominator as a multiple. So 4 times 5 is 20, and 5 times 4 is 20. Get them into the same denominators. And now let's check the numerators. 1 times 5 is 5, and 2 times 4 is 8. So now we have 8 twentieths and 5 twentieths. We are ready to add the numerators. Since we are adding, we're going to do 8 plus 5, which is 13, and then the denominator stays the same. So we have 13 over 20 once we have added the fractions. So 3 and 13 out of 20 would be our total that she ran on Monday and Tuesday. So 3 miles and then 13 twentieths of a mile. Okay. So now using the same value, 1 2/5, 1 2/5 is equal to 1 4/10. And then 2 1/4 is equal to 2.25. So first we added the fractions and we got 3 and 13 twentieths. So let's add the decimal equivalencies and see what our answer is with the decimal equivalency. 2 divided by 5 gives you 4/10. 1 divided by 4 gives you 25/100. So let's line up our whole numbers. So we have 2 as a whole number, and then we're going to line up our whole number here, and then line up our decimals. So we're going to add up these numbers, 2 and 25/100, and 1 and 4/10. Since there's nothing here for the hundredths, then we put in a 0, then we go ahead and add. 5 plus 0, 2 plus 4, bring your decimal down, and then 2 plus 3, or 2 plus 1 is 3. So the decimal value, 3.65, is actually equal to 3 and 13 twentieths. So if we divided 65 by 5 and simplified it, that would give us 13. And the last question, what would her total be if she ran 2 and 3.375 on Sunday too? So she ran on Monday and Tuesday, took a few days off, and then she ran some more on Sunday. So let's find our total, 3.65, and then line up your whole numbers, line up your decimal, and then we got 375. Since there is no value here in the thousands place value, we're going to put in a 0. Now let's go ahead and add up because we're looking for the total. 5 plus 0 is 5. 5 plus 7 is 12. Carry the 1. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Bring the decimal down. 3, 4, 5. So what would her total be if she ran this many miles on Sunday? It looks like she would have let's see, just over 6 miles. 6 miles total, and it would actually just be a little bit over that. Okay, taking a look at Tuesday's homework. So Seth ran 3 3/4 miles on Wednesday, and he ran 2.5 miles on Tuesday. How much more did he run on Wednesday? So if we're looking at comparison and we're trying to find out how much more, we need to find the difference. So we're actually going to subtract these two amounts. So let's take a look at the whole numbers. 3 minus 2 is going to give us 1. And now look at our fractions, and we're going to look at the denominator. We do not have the same size denominator, so we need to find a common denominator. So 2 does have a multiple that equals 4, so we only need to change this fraction to get us to a common denominator. And this one is already 4, so we can leave that the same, 3/4. So 2 times 2 would be 4. And then 1 times 2, make sure we multiply by the same factor. So that's going to be 2/4. So 3/4 minus 1/2 is the same as 3/4 minus 2/4. And since we're subtracting, we have the same denominators now. So now we can subtract the numerators. 3 minus 2 is 1. And that is left over out of 4. So he ran 1 1/4 miles more on Wednesday than he did on Tuesday. So let's check the decimal equivalency here. So 3 3/4 is equal to 3.75, and then 2 1/2 is equal to 2.5. So we got 3.75 miles minus 2.5 miles. So we're going to set this up. Make sure you line up your whole numbers, stack them, and then line up your decimals. Make sure those are the same, in the same position. Put the 5 in there. Don't move the 5 over. Keep it right by the decimal, and then put in a 0. Now we're going to subtract. 5 minus nothing is 5. 7 minus 5 is 2. Bring the decimal down. And then 3 minus 2 is 1. So if we check our answer, 1 1/4 is equal to 1.25. So he ran 4.8 miles on Friday. How many more miles did he run than Wednesday? 4.8. So he ran 3.75 miles on Wednesday, and he ran 4.8 miles on Friday. So we're going to put the larger number on top here, and then line up your whole numbers. And since we don't have a number in the hundredths place value, we're going to put one in there. And it looks like we're going to need to divide. Or, I'm sorry, subtract. What am I talking about? So we're going to subtract here. Oh, we need to borrow. So 0, we cannot take away 5. We don't have 5, so we need to borrow. So 10 minus 5 is 5. Then 7 minus 7 is 0. And then 4 minus 3 is going to be 1. So let me check and make sure we got this here. So it looks like on Friday, Seth, he ran just over 1 mile more. So just 1.05. So he ran 1 mile more on Friday than he did on Wednesday. So Emma is making a recipe that requires 3 3/4 cups of flour, and she wanted to make 2.5 times the recipe. So she needs to make more than what the recipe called for. She's going to make more batches. So what is the total amount of flour that she's going to need to make the larger recipe? So here's our keyword. We're going to multiply this fraction, 3 3/4, by 2 1/2. And we've been working on this in class. Before we multiply the fraction, we need to regroup. So we need to get this whole number back up in the numerator. So we're going to do 4 times 3, which is 12. And we're going to do 2 times 2, which is going to be 4. So now we're done with the whole number. And now we're going to have to rewrite the fractions here. 12 plus 3 is 15. And then 4 plus 1 is 5. So now that we regrouped our fractions, we can work with them here. So 4 times 2 is 8. And then 15 times 5. Let's check it. 5 times 5 is 25. 5 times 1 is 5 plus 2. So that's going to be 75. 75 eighths. So we need to figure out how many eighths can we get out of 75. So 8, 16, 24, 32, 40, 48, 56, 64, 72. So that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 75 divided by 8 is going to be 9 whole numbers. And then 75 minus 72 is going to be 3 left over out of 8. So I'm going to set that up in a little different way where we're going to use long division. So we could do 75 being divided by 8. Then 9 times 8 is 72. 5 minus 2 is going to be 3. And that's going to be 3 left over out of 8. So if we divide this out, or if we multiply this out, we should end up with 9 and 3/8. And if we take the same numbers, 3 and 3/4, 3.75, and then we take 2 and 1/2, 2 and 1/2. Now instead of using fractions, we can use decimals. 3.75 times 2.5. 5 times 5 is 25, carry the 2. 5 times 7 is 35, plus 2 is 37. 5 times 3 is 15. 15 plus 3 is going to be 18. Okay, so we're done with those. We're done with the 5, so we're going to cross out the place value down here below the 5 and then go to the next place value. 2 times 5 is 10. Carry the 1. 2 times 7 is 14, plus 1 is 15. 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7. So we got 5, 7, 8 plus 5 is 13, carry the 1, and 7, 8, 9. And then we count our decimal place values, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So we come up with 9 as a whole number and 3 divided by 8. And if we actually divided that out, 3 divided by 8 does give us 0.375. Now, looking at Thursday's homework, we got 2.5 cups of sugar for lemonade, and she's going to divide the sugar into 3/4 cups of pitcher. So every pitcher, there's going to be 3/4 cups of sugar that's going to go in there. So how many pitchers of lemonade can she make? Well, we have her total. We need to separate equally. Separating equally means we're going to divide. So before we divide, we're going to regroup. So we take the denominator, 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is going to be 5 over 2. And then we have 3/4. Now we're ready to use our second strategy of keep, change, flip. Since we are dividing fractions, we're going to keep the fraction the same, change the multiplication, and then reciprocal. We're going to multiply by the reciprocal or keep, change, flip that fraction over. So this fraction, 5 halves divided by 3/4 is actually 5 halves times 4/3. 2 times 3 is 6. 5 times 4 is 20. So now we're going to set this up. We have 20 divided by 6. 20 divided by 6. We got 6, 12, 18, 24. 24 is too much. So we have 1, 2, 3 whole numbers. 6 divides into 20 3 times. 3 times 6 is 18. And then we're left with 2 left over as a remainder. So this is equal to 3 as a whole number, and then the remainder of 2 left over out of 6. 2, 6. And we can actually simplify that because this is 2 times 1, and then 2 times 3 equals 6. Divide by 2. That's going to be 1 over 3. So let's take this out. This is going to be all together. She can make 3 pitchers of lemonade, and then she could actually start another pitcher of lemonade. So she could probably only make 3 if she has 2.5 cups of sugar. Okay, so now let's take a look at this dividing using decimals. 2.5 divided by 75. So 2 1/2 is 2.5, 3/4 is 75. So if we use this process, instead of using fractions, we use decimals. Well, since we're dividing by 75/100ths, we need to move this over to make a whole number, but then we're going to move this one over 2 spots to make to match with the whole number process. So instead of dividing by 0.75, 2.50 is being divided by 75, and we move it over 2 places, 1, 2. That's actually going to, instead of 75/100ths, we're going to divide 250 divided by 75. So 75, we could probably do a little chart for that. 75 and 75 is 150. And then 75 plus 150 is going to give us 225. And then if we did one more multiple, that'd be too much. So let's check this here. So this is 1, 2, 3 multiples. 3 times 75 is 225. 75 cannot divide into 2. 75 cannot divide into 25. So there we have our whole numbers. And if we subtract this, that's going to give us 25 left over. So 25 out of 75, make a fraction out of it. 25 out of 75, which simplifies to 1/3. So the repeating decimal here, 1/3, we're going to keep having the same remainder. We're going to end up with 3 1/3. Okay, I had to fix a couple things real quick. So we're dividing to get the decimal here. We already had the fraction. So we 3 times 75 is going to give us 225. We got 250 left over. Then you got another 3, which is 225, and that's going to give us 25. So we're going to keep having the same remainder left over. So that remainder is going to be our repeating decimal up above. So 3 1/3 is equal to 3.33333, but we're going to stop after 2 decimal place values. Make sure you go ahead and click turn in and then wait for the blue button for submit.